My name is Nissan Wasfie, and I'm a full-time faculty member at Columbia College Chicago. I teach in the Arts, Entertainment, and Media Management department here. I teach economics, mostly economics courses, but I do teach entrepreneurship and marketing courses as well. I've been teaching here for 4 years, and I come from a diverse background. I started thinking I was going to go into film. So I worked for a film company in New York called the Shooting Gallery. They produced movies like Sling Blade with Billy Bob Thornton, which got an Oscar, and You Can Count on Me with Laura Linney. She got nominated for an Oscar for that movie. It was produced by Marty Scorsese. And I left the company because I realized that line producing wasn't for me. And I came to Chicago to pursue a master's degree in visual arts management, which I completed. And then I started working in the for-profit visual arts world. And I've worked for a small for-profit art consulting company for on and off part-time now for 5 years. That's where I come from. Best way for me to talk about the balance between art and commerce and aesthetics and profits and things like that is to give you an example. You know, we have clients that'll come to us at the art consulting firm and say, we want this to match the curtains, or we want this to match the couch. But what we do is we develop a curatorial statement at the very, very beginning with our clients and say this needs to be the overriding mission statement for your entire collection, no matter what color the drapes are or X, Y, and Z. We understand there are budget reasons, we have to consider those. But at the end of the day, the art and the curatorial statement, the collection needs to come first. And if our clients don't agree to that, we won't work with them. So the art always has to be first. Now, you got to watch budgets. You got to make sure that the clients can afford what they're purchasing. We also don't make any promises about art appreciation financially. That's ridiculous. That'll never happen. Actually, I show it in my economics classes. I actually show studies that prove again and again and again, and every year The Economist always regurgitates this analysis that art collecting doesn't make more money than stocks. So you might as well just invest in the stock market. And it's true, unless you have the few key pieces that are hot that year. So we always try to move away from the idea that this is going to make you money or any of that stuff, or it's going to be profitable, but instead focus on the aesthetics and the art and those choices. And so that's how we balance it. We always put the art first, but in the back, we're always thinking about money. I think what makes a good manager is you need to be motivated. You need to be highly motivated personally, but then you also need to be able to motivate people. That's important. That's first. Second, I think obviously management skills. So that's a personality trait. That's not really something we can train you in. That's just something you're probably innate, something you're born with. What we can train you with, and this is also important, are the management skills. Accounting. Students hate accounting, and I understand accounting is really, really difficult. I took a lot of accounting courses. I understand, but it's very important that you know where your money is and how your money works. At the end of the day, economics. Obviously, I have a personal preference for that, but students need to understand the broader picture about how the world works, and specifically how this country works and its economic system, how it's allowed us to be so prosperous, and how we can take advantage of that. Management skills like that. Marketing, students, I think, have a hard time understanding what marketing is. A lot of them think it's just advertising, which is a huge mistake. Writing, as always, you got to have writing skills. Without being able to communicate in writing, whenever my students email me something, a homework assignment, or I will tell them that they have to address it in a certain way. You can't just shoot me an email without any subject line and just an attachment of homework. I'm not going to respond to that. You have to be professional, and so that's what we're doing with the management skills. We're trying to make you a professional, so you can be a good manager. And then the motivation side, and I think you're well on your way. Of course, you have to have an understanding of your art form. I think that's very important. Even though I was never personally a filmmaker, I think I understood the art form very well. I understood what it takes to make a movie, a feature film. It seems like ethics is always a final thought, and value is always a final thought for students, and it shouldn't be. It should be at the forefront. We live at this digital age where things can be gobbled up for free all the time, and no one thinks about the consequences of that. I'm not here to judge anybody, but we need to know that there are more, there are ethical standards that we all need to adhere to, no matter what business we're in. It's just like cheating on your taxes. You can't do that. That's unethical, and plus it's illegal. So forget that it's unethical. The man's going to come after you, and no one wants to be. Trust me, no one wants to be audited by the IRS. You don't want to go there. So keep your nose clean. And So student. I always stress values in that respect, that they need to be morally conscious. I think that the overriding the overriding goal of any business should be profit. If it's a for-profit, of course, we'll leave the non-for-profit aside. That's different. But for the for-profit business, it should always be profit. Now, that's for a company like General Motors or the widget maker down the street, or International Steel or whatever. But for an arts business, what makes us unique, our students learn more than they would at a business school. Because at a business school, all they would learn is business. Here they learn business and aesthetics. And so that's very important, that the students have, sort of like a two-pronged approach to their businesses. You got to keep the aesthetics there and the profit there. So that's actually more of a challenge than going to make widgets. Making widgets, anybody can make widgets. Making a lot of money. I tell my students all the time, making a lot of money isn't that hard. Okay, if you want to make a lot of money, I can tell you exactly how to make a lot of money. You're not going to be happy necessarily. You're not going to be, there's no way you're going to express yourself aesthetically. But that's the challenge of an arts manager. How do we balance the profit with the art? And I think there are ways to do it. Of course there are ways to do it. There are artists all over the world that are doing it. But the morals have to be there. You gotta sell yourself out. I hate air quotes. I'm sorry. Sell yourself out. What is that? What does that mean? If I make a Coca-Cola commercial, is that selling myself out? Well, what if I got to write the jingle? Isn't that an aesthetic choice? Is that really selling myself out? I don't know. You got to make those choices. And if your heart says okay, and the books say okay, then do it. I don't care. Well, the technical definition of economics, of course, is the study of allocation of scarce resources among competing uses. I think that is a perfectly applicable definition for the arts. Same. There are scarce resources in the arts. What are the scarce resources? Well, the biggest scarce resource, and I think this is obvious, talent. Finding talented artists, whether you're the visual arts or film or music business, talent is hard. That's the scarcest resource. So now if you can find the talent, you have to be able to allocate that talent in such a way that you maximize all your output. And what's your output? Well, is it CDs? Is it is it ringtones? Is it commercials? Whatever it is, that's economics. That's economics. How do we manage the allocation of the scarce resources? Now, of course, there are other scarce resources in the arts that apply also to general business, which are, of course, capital, cash and equipment and all those things are scarce. But what's exciting for the especially for a lot of our students right now is that these things are becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and it's fantastic to see that students can put together a pretty decent movie with a Mac and a $2,000 camera and maybe a $500 budget for cookies and coffee. It's fantastic to see that students can do that. And it's the same thing with the music, because now they just need a laptop and a keyboard and a small studio in their basement, and they're producing tracks that are a pretty good quality. I mean, okay, they're not professional, they're not the top level, but they're quite good. So I think that it's an exciting time in terms of those resources for students. Those seem to be more abundant, whereas talent, I think is harder to find. The economic impact of the iPod, or digital music in general, it's actually the second step in the revolution. I think the first step was obviously the internet communication tool, which was just fantastic. So it came in, it destroyed record sales, to say the least. Everybody was scrambling. No one knew what they were doing. And I'm not blaming the record industry. Those guys aren't tech guys. That was the first step, was the internet revolution. Then the second step was Apple catching up and saying, here is a device that you can put some of that music that you have on your computer on, portably and carry it around, and the interface is fantastic, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, Apple products are always sexy and cool. Forget the $500 price tag. Apparently, no one cared about that. And then that's because they weren't paying for the music, maybe. And then the third step, and this is the most important one, is that Apple said, how can we do this legally so that the record labels don't come after us and say, you need to start paying some sort of a fine or tax or levy on your tariff on your iPods because you're stealing from the music, but you're encouraging people to steal music. So they developed this iTunes business, which is really just a business to sell iPods. They don't care about the music. I mean, they do. I think they do. Personally, I think Steve Jobs does care about music, and he does care about art, which is great. Because if you had a company, some other companies, maybe they wouldn't care about music or the art. But really, what they're a business, and they're in the business of making money, and they've made a lot of money by setting up this iTunes thing because it forces people, if you buy iTunes content, almost all iTunes content requires you to use an iPod. So it drives iPod sales. Plus, it appeased the music business people because it said, here's a legal outlet for young people, or for people in general that buy iPods and buy digital music, to buy it legally. Of course, we've all seen the breakdown of the economics of that. It's very tiny. No one's making any money on iTunes. I mean, they are, but it's not that much. It's not nearly as much as it used to be with the CDs or albums in general, because everybody's buying one song. Marketing for the arts is a little bit trickier. Again, I think it's greater than marketing for, a T-shirt or a sweater. It's a little bit more than that. But at its core, it's still the same thing, which is that you have to connect with the consumer. You have to connect with the customer. So how does a business connect its product, whatever its product is, with a consumer? Because chances are, unless your product is really nutso-coluzzo, someone out there is going to want to buy it. So how do you get it to them in such a way that those people who are looking for your product or don't even know your product exists can find your product? In the arts, that can be a little, again, it's greater, so it can be a little more tricky because people's aesthetics vary so much. And you may think you know somebody in terms of a customer. You could say, oh, I think our demographics for this album are, white kids from suburbia, 18 to 24-year-olds, making literal no income, but, own a car, et cetera, et cetera. You could be way off base, because what you found out is that it's actually Latino population in South Central Los Angeles that is really into your music. Because right now I'm just thinking of Morrissey. Morrissey for a long time, it was this with the Smiths, it was obviously disgruntled youth and sort of nihilistic look on life. But then unknowingly there was a whole other subculture that was embracing Morrissey, which was this Latino population, young Latino population, urban Latino population. I mean, nobody at Morrissey's label thought we should be marketing to these people. I don't even know how it got into that culture, but CDs get swapped, somebody heard it on the radio, and that's it. And now, of course, the marketing people embrace that. So, like I said, it's a little bit more tricky in the music business, or in arts in general, to market. But it's the same principle, which is just you have to connect with your customer. To market your music to a young person just starting out, the best way to market your music is to give it away. Give it away for free. Give it away for free because people are very price sensitive. what we call elastic in economics to most arts, entertainment, media media products. Some media products are inelastic, which would be the opposite. They're not very price sensitive too, but those are unique markets that have been developed over many, many years. I'm thinking of like, tickets to a Prince concert or something, or a Madonna concert. They don't care what the price is. They're going to show up. That's because she's got a built-in audience base. But when you're starting out, you're very, very elastic. People are very sensitive to the price of your product or your service. And price is part of marketing. Now, I understand you poured your heart and soul into this, and you may have spent a lot of money developing it. But in order to break through, maybe it's time to give away downloads or give away physical CDs. And I think that's the simplest way to do it, because there's so many times that I know young people will say, well, I would get that, but I have to pay for it. Why would I pay for it? And so they go online, they look for it for free. So if you can do it, just hand out, CDs or whatever your distribution channel is for free. I think it's a really good idea. That's the simplest way to market. That's MySpace or whatever. It doesn't matter. Getting to the next level in marketing for somebody specifically in the music business, requires some creativity. A lot of people, and I don't necessarily agree with some of these marketing tactics, this guerrilla marketing thing, which was, of course, as you know, started in New York in the mid-90s, spray painting sidewalk. I'm not encouraging of that, but I do think that's creative, without being, you don't have to be a vandal, but there are creative ways to market yourself to that next level. And create a buzz about yourself. So, of course, the next best way I can think of immediately is to book shows. Start booking shows, get a proper booking agent, someone that's licensed, because I think probably in your state it requires a license. And if you can book a show, one festival, even if you're not top billing, it doesn't matter. Just get in there and try to get yourself, generate a little buzz that way. And then you got to get the music magazines, the writers about the music, you got to get them interested, and that's very, very hard. My sister worked for a long time for several music publications, including Vibe and Source and Herb and Rolling Stone and all this stuff, and but she was still open to receiving CDs in the mail. Send me your CD. I'll listen to it. I'll give it a shot. I'm a music critic. John Peel was famous for that. He would always accept, he used to have tapes. John Peel, rest his soul. He used to have tapes. He would always drive around. You're always driving around. Pop them in the deck. If you liked the tape, it would stay in the front seat. If you didn't, it would go in the back seat. His back seat was full of garbage all the time. But the front seat had maybe 10 or 15 tapes at any given time. And then he'd take those back into the studio and play them on air, or he'd write about them. And what a great opportunity to have somebody who's so magnanimous and influential to give you a break. And there are other. John Peel is dead, but there are other people in the music business, especially in the critic side of it, that could give you a break. So send it to everybody. You don't send it to Rolling Stone, okay? But there are music magazines specific to every genre. Every single genre has a music business magazine. So I think having a plan is, as somebody who is highly detail oriented and also as an educator, I think having a plan, any kind of plan, is good. In terms of marketing, you have to have. I think having a business plan for life is a good idea. That may seem ridiculous, but having a business plan for life is, I think, a fine idea. And then a part of that would, of course, be your marketing plan, et cetera, et cetera. But, Harvard years ago did a study with some of its alumni where they were asking them 10 years out, 15 years out, or 10, 20, and 30 years out, because they have all those reunions for homecoming. Who of you, when you graduated 10, 15, 30 years ago, wrote down your goals, wrote down your, just some ideas. And, some people said yes, and some people said no, and they took those people aside and they started extrapolating some data, and they found that there is a clear correlation between those people who write things down in terms of their goals, their plan, and their success, those people that don't do any of it. So I ask of my students that they, if nothing else, write down some financial goals for themselves. Because there's no reason any of us have to be poor. This is the richest country in the world. There's plenty of money to go around. You're in the music business. That starving artist crap, I don't believe in it. I think that's ridiculous. No one needs to be starving, and especially if they're an artist and they have talent. So write down your goals. I want to, sell 10,000 albums by the time I'm 30. Just write it down. Maybe it seems crazy. I want $1 million in the bank by the time I'm 35. Who cares? Just write it down. And then look at them. Look at them. Every year, every couple, 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is, look at them. And having that plan, seeing that thing just written down, that tangibility there, makes a huge difference. And so I think having a plan is very important. Artists can be self-managers, and I think that's a great opportunity for them, because a lot of them do have the entrepreneurial spirit. What's the ultimate risk besides making music? That or painting a painting. Every time you put paint to canvas or grab a guitar or lay down some tracks, that is a huge risk. You're really putting yourself out there emotionally and psychologically. So this person may actually be a really good entrepreneur, because that is really what an entrepreneur is someone that takes risks. But for those artists, I would encourage that you have to understand the business aspect. Now, on the other end of it, I do think that some artists can back away from it and say, I need to just make art, and I need somebody who can manage me or manage my artistic output. So I think both can work. The second one, that symbiosis is very important. We hear stories all the time about bands breaking up because of bad management. I mean, the band breaking up because of bad management. Forget that the manager and the artist break up. And other careers, falling apart, and just watch behind the music. It's all about bad management. So there has to be a real deep understanding between the manager and the artist for it to really work. But it can, and it can be very successful, because then the artist can focus on just the artistic output, and the manager can focus on connecting the audience with the artist for a mutual benefit and some sort of profit. I think for an artist interviewing a potential manager for whatever their artistic product is, I think that they need to look at pedigree. Where have you come from? What have you done before? Did you go to school for management? Do you understand accounting? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's the first thing, references and things like that. But I do think a lot of it is personality too. A lot of it is the personality of the manager and the artist. They have to agree, aesthetically. I have very, very little interest in reggae music. Okay, does that mean I can't manage a reggae band? No, I probably could. I probably could manage a reggae band, but I don't think I'd have a deep enough understanding of the reggae audience, of the reggae music, to be a great manager. So I think the artist needs to look for a manager that also has the same aesthetic sensibilities. Maybe not perfect, but close. Oh yeah, I'm interested in reggae. That's what I have an interest in reggae. I love it. So, okay, well then now we're talking. So if they have that and the management skills, which can come from a degree or certificates or training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or pedigree, then you've got a great beginnings of success. Artists always need to do their due diligence when they're picking a manager, and I think the simplest way to do it is to call the references. And I know no one has time, and people are busy, and people, quickly, you trust people quickly, and I understand that. I trust people quickly, maybe a little too quickly sometimes. But you need to obviously phone those references in and make sure these people are who they say they are. Ask to see the degree. Why not? What do you lose, right? Everybody's got their degree. I bet you even know where your degree is, right? So, okay, so I'd have to dig mine out too, but I'd find it. Or just phoning around and making sure that this person worked where they say they did, or they managed the band they say they did. And that's probably the simplest way to do due diligence, because if you don't, you can get ripped off, and nobody wants that. I think you can't compete with free. Again, it boils down to economics. Free is really complicated economically, the idea of free. Nothing is ever really free. That's the whole idea of opportunity cost. And of course, this is not a lecture, so I won't get into opportunity cost, but there's no such thing as free. But when you get close to free, which is just a click away, boy, that is pretty close to really economically being completely free. And so I don't think you can compete with that. I don't think you can compete with that. What I think you can do is offer something else. And I think the product needs to change. I think you need to throw away that product and say, forget it, it's just going to be free. And come up with something that can't be free. So what's impossible, in terms of those free criteria, and maybe it's a live show. I own a bunch of live concert DVDs, from like Coachella and, all these things, and they're crap. They're crap. They don't beat going to Coachella, Nothing beats showing up, and I have, downloads of Lollapalooza and all these things, of the bands playing live. I actually kind of like the recording in the studios better, because there's nothing like being at a live show. And if you can sell that as the real value, well, you can't get that for free. You can't. You can't replace that. There's no way to download that. And that's the kind of thing that you have to offer if you're competing with free. Is something that can't be free. I think they've always been a service provider. I think they made a mistake a long time ago and thought that they were actually producing something that had some sort of tangible, effect. Like a mocha or something. They're not really making mochas or pizzas. They probably thought they were, but I always thought that arts and music and it's the feeling you get, and that's intangible. And so I think it's always been a service industry. And now it's becoming more prominent that they're obviously a service industry. So bands, they have to tour. They have to tour. That's how they're going to generate income. They're not generating income from any record sales. No one's generating any income from record sales. Just a few are making money from ringtones. So, how do you really make money? How do you survive? You have to provide that service. Absolutely. I think you have to play gigs. You have to maybe provide certain content that can't be distributed illegally. I'm thinking of like in-studio recordings, where you can see like a video of the band recording their album. That would be kind of cool, and that's something that people may pay for, like hardcore fans. There are ways to do it without being too intimate, because I know a lot of artists like to keep their distance. You don't have to go out there and shake hands. You're not a politician. But at the same time, you need to get out there. It absolutely needs to be a service. I think record companies are gone. I think not today, not tomorrow, obviously, but I think that the forecast that I'm seeing and the economic analysis that I've made is that within 10 years, there'll be no standard record companies that we think of. The four majors, they're going to be gone. Obviously Sony isn't going anywhere because they sell digital cameras and computers, and Warner sells movies, so everybody's going to be okay. But there will be no record companies in the way that you and I understand them, and especially the way that you and I understood them maybe 20 years ago. So I don't think that the record industry is going to survive. I think it's over. It's on its way out. So them providing it, but see, here's the thing. Someone's got to sponsor the artist, concerts, or live productions. And so that could be a record label. It could be, because they understand music business, et cetera, so maybe they can capitalize on it. But potentially it could be any investor. Any investor could sponsor, and that's what's happening sort of in reverse with Madonna, right? She's got the Live Nation thing going for her record labels, but they're really a presenter. It doesn't matter anymore. Who's got the capital? They can put on the shows, they can make money. Record labels could do it potentially, but I think the majors are gone. Not that there won't be record labels. There will be small record labels, et cetera, but not the big ones. They're on their way out. And this is what's exciting for young people. This is exciting for this generation. They're at a real tipping point, and I think that entrepreneurs, young people that want to take risks, start their own label like in the traditional sense, but then think creatively and distribute creatively, et cetera. I think there's a great opportunity for them right now. Oh, it's fantastic. It's so exciting. I wish I was 20 years younger. I would do something like that. Distribution of content, all content, whether it's TV, film, music, it doesn't matter. I think all content, economically speaking, should be distributed through all channels. It should be distributed through all channels at all times. So I think the future is, a movie's released simultaneously, and obviously Soderbergh did this with Bubble. He released the movie on DVD, and the theater, on demand, on the internet, all in the same day. Economically, that makes fantastic sense. That is the smartest thing you could do in terms of pure economics, because what you're doing is you're saying to the consumer out there, I don't care how you enjoy my product. If you want to watch it on your little iPod screen, go right ahead and watch it on your little iPod screen. Okay, it's crazy for us because we need glasses. Now, or do you want to go to the theater and experience the theater experience and see it with lots of people around you, and you can all laugh together and cry together and have that experience? Well, there it is for you there too. And if you want to watch it at home with your girlfriend or your boyfriend in front of the TV, well, there you go. And so I think that economically, if you can give people more choice, the better. So distribution should be through all channels. Now, how do you charge for that distribution, et cetera, is a little complicated, but I think that it's all based on the experience. You got to charge for the experience. So that little thing, I don't know what kind of experience you get there, so maybe that's cheap. If I can stress nothing else to my students, and I'm trying different ways to do this, is that everything is limited. Everything is scarce. Time is scarce, and obviously for them, cash tends to be very scarce. You're a young person. I was, in college once too. I didn't eat anything for weeks, and all that stuff. But I think for young people, if I can stress that, time is scarce and life is scarce, and you really need to enjoy and take advantage of your life now while you're young, and not just blow it, because so many young people blow their talent. I don't need to name names, but we all know who these people are. And they're just wasting their talent, and they have so much opportunity, and it's really sad. And so if I can stress nothing else to my students, in terms of my goal, is just to enjoy life and to take every day and thank whoever it is that you thank for that day, because you won't get another one. You won't get another one. So just take advantage of everything.
Thanks very much for talking to us.
Oh, thanks very much. I really appreciate it.